There was no federal presence here.
Convinced they had to move forward alone, STFU members called a cotton pickers strike for higher wages during the fall of 1935.
Let them throw us in jail if they want to. We'll fill every jail in Arkansas. But get off the fields and stay off until the bosses give in.
The March of Time decided to make a film and reenact scenes from the strike and other aspects of the union organization. There were some actors, some people who were actually hired to do a few of the scenes. However, there were scenes with real staff members.
And let's build the Southern Tenant Farmers Union and make a country worthwhile to live in.
To keep workers out of the fields, the STFU started rumors that the union was shooting anyone caught picking cotton during the strike. After 10 days, the landlords gave in and were forced to raise wages. As the news of the STFU victory spread, new union locals opened in Missouri, Mississippi, Texas, and Tennessee. Membership grew to 25,000.
If the plan is in the way, we're gonna roll it over him, gonna roll it over him, gonna roll it over him. If the plan is in the way, we're gonna roll it over him, gonna roll the union on.
The STFU victory was short-lived. In December 1935, plantation owner C.H. Dibble ordered 100 union members off his land.
They start at one house and they keep going from house to house until they get a wagon load. Then they'd carry it and dump it out on the road and come back and get another load. We got finished about first dark. Everybody's furniture was together, and you had to ramble through everything to try to find yours. And one day, a car came by, man got out and put a package in a paper bag on a table and got back in the car and sped away.
Then one of the men walked up to the table and he picked up the package, and when he opened it up, there were about 6 or 8 sticks of dynamite in there, and it had a note attached. And the note said, "Mr. Nigger, take your woman and your children and get out of here, or we're gonna blow you up."
On January 16th, when evicted sharecroppers gathered at a church near Earle, Arkansas, 2 local law officers broke into the meeting. They shot 2 men in the back and beat another unconscious. The next day, evicted families defiantly met again, this time with the Reverend Howard Kester and union attorney Herman Goldberger.
It was jammed with men, women, and children. And I gathered 300 or 400, as I recall, people packed in that church. And through the back doors of the church burst a crowd of men with guns, about 13 or 14 of them, as I recall. And they stormed the building, and people were so terrified that they came out of the windows, taking sash and glass and all with them.
I saw them strike people. I saw them strike one old man. I vividly remember that. People were just running and getting away as fast as they could. And then 2 men came out, one on each side of Kester and Goldberger, and brought them to the car, put them in it, got on the running board.
My father drove where they told him to, of course, out in the woods. And the man on his side, by the driver's seat, was holding a gun to his temple.
We'd heard of lynches and seen pictures of them, but this is the first time I knew what it might be really like, because there was a palpable feeling of hate and fear.
There was a nice big tree with some handy limbs, and one of the men had a rope with a noose in it. My father, he was scared to death, just scared to death. So he began to talk with them quickly about what might happen if they killed him. He said, I'm from out of state, and you boys better remember that if anything happens to me, the FBI will be in here.
Reason prevailed, and they threatened us with worse than death if we ever came back, and left us at the border between Arkansas and Memphis.
There is mean things happening in this land. There is mean things happening in this land. The planters told the people of the land where many years they had spent, and in the cold, hard winter, they had to live in tents.
By April 1936, terrorism in Arkansas was making national headlines. The STFU and its supporters thought at last the federal government might intervene.
The Union had several hopes from the federal government. On a major level, they wanted the government to stand for and act out justice and to see to it that people got their rights and got the kind of protection from the law regardless of economic circumstances. So on the larger level, it was important that the government, federal government, take a stance that would say to everybody else, including the planter system, there is law and order in this country, and it will be on the side of people who do what is legal and proper.
Union members, still under attack, now asked for a meeting with President Roosevelt during his June 10th trip to Little Rock.
Govern up your brow, my friends of Arkansas. For me, this has been a glorious day, and this is a splendid climax.
In the past, Roosevelt had privately urged Arkansas leaders to end the violence against the croppers. But on this day, he chose to publicly honor a friend of the planters, the man who was the New Deal's strongest ally in the Senate.
No man deserves greater credit for loyal devotion to the great cause of humanity than my old friend and associate, Senator Joseph E. Robinson.
The STFU request for a meeting with the president was denied.
He came down here and made that speech at Little Rock. Norman Thomas had tried his best to persuade him to espouse the cause of the sharecropper and tenant union outfit. He ignored that altogether. His contribution to the welfare of the poor people in Arkansas, the sharecropper, the one that was starving and needed, was just maybe from 1 to 10, possibly he'd register 2. He really wasn't interested in them. He was interested in where the power was. He was a politician, one of the best we ever had.
The Union would wait 2 more years for a meaningful victory. It came in 1938 when the government at last agreed to send payments directly to tenants and croppers. But the new policy helped very few. Cotton planters in Missouri, just north of the Arkansas Delta, evicted their remaining tenants, so the planters could continue to keep all the government money for themselves.
No more mourning, no more mourning, no more mourning after a while. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. Take my place with those who love and fought before.
251 evicted families, many of them members of the Southern Tenant Farmers Union, camped on Missouri highways in protest. The STFU's days as an active union were nearly over.
And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave. Take my place with those who love and fought before.
My father was aware of the fact that as an instrument to change the lives of the sharecroppers in any substantive and permanent way, the Southern Tenant Farmers Union was a dismal failure. But he believed that it taught all those people who were involved in it two very important lessons. One, that they could fight, and with dignity. And two, that blacks and whites could fight together.
Individually, they felt that they did not accomplish a lot. They suffered, they struggled, but they came together and they really stood up, and they stood up for what they believed in. And that in itself, they saw as a step toward freedom.
New Deal democracy faced a different kind of test in the steel towns of the North. Company towns like Aliquippa, Pennsylvania, where the Jones and Laughlin Mill stretched for 4 miles along the Ohio River. In the midst of the Depression, with millions unemployed nationwide, J&L provided jobs for a town it had literally built and owned.
You work, you save, you worry, so what you can take your dough when you go, go, go. So keep repeating it's the berries, the strongest oak must fall. But lee, my bitty, wabba bidda, long, wow. Life is just a bowl of cherries, so live and laugh at it all.
The main industry in town, of course, was J&L. In fact, it was a company town. J&L built the town, laid the town out, and were responsible to see that everything in Aliquippa was conducted in a good, solid fashion for the benefit of the citizens of the town.
Aliquippa people used to pour in from all over the world. Immigrants from Italy, Serbians, Yugoslavians, Irish people, blacks from down south would come up, work in the steel mills. And the town was one of the busiest towns in western Pennsylvania.
The town itself was broken up, and you had a segregated place for blacks, a segregated place for Englishmen, for Italians. In other words, the whites were not all together. They were segregated among themselves because there were divisions there.
Those areas, no black person ever walked after dark. In fact, you had a hell of a time getting around there during the day. They arrested you, take you down to a police station, and if you didn't answer the right question, they might hit you a few times on the head. If you worked in J&L, they arrest you for loitering, and they take $10 out of your pay.
To work at J&L's Aliquippa Mill, people had to follow rules established by Tom Girdler, who in the 1920s had been superintendent and later president of the company. During Girdler's time, Aliquippa earned a reputation as a tough, anti-union town. He worked closely with the local Republican Party machine and police to establish what he called a benevolent dictatorship.
The company, Jones and Laughlin Steel Corporation, operated a very strict policy of control, of thought control and of human activity control. And George Izowski was a specific case where he was committed to an insane asylum in western Pennsylvania because he was unionizing, attempting to unionize the steel workers.
They were the controlling power because they had the jobs. They had the say-so over everything. And there was nothing that people could do, you know, unless they really wanted to take a chance at losing their jobs.
But as long as you followed their rules, which was keep your mouth shut, don't talk against J&L, don't join any unions, you were in good shape.
In 1933, Roosevelt's National Recovery Act recognized the right of industrial workers to form unions. Union leaders began a campaign for higher wages, an 8-hour workday, and job security. But when organizers arrived in Aliquippa, J&L drove them out of town. In nearby Amber,